Can you imagine an angel so powerful that it wiped out an army of 185,000 soldiers in a single night? This mind-blowing story is straight from the Bible. This isn't just a story, it's a breathtaking account of God's unmatched power and his ability to deliver his people from impossible odds. Today, we're diving into the miraculous events that unfolded during King Hezekiah's reign in Judah, where faith, prayer, and divine intervention changed the course of history. Stay with us to the very end, because this story holds a powerful truth. No matter how overwhelming the odds, God's power can bring victory in your life too. Picture this. An unstoppable army surrounds your city, their banners casting shadows over the walls. What would you do? The Assyrian Empire, feared for its ruthless conquests, had already crushed countless cities. Now King Sennacherib and his massive army of 185,000 soldiers turned their sights on Jerusalem. They taunted King Hezekiah and his people, declaring that no God, not even the God of Israel, could save them. Sennacherib's messengers proclaimed victory before the battle even began, boasting of their past conquests and warning the people of Judah not to trust Hezekiah's God. For the people inside the city walls, it was a moment of sheer terror. Imagine the weight of knowing your city could be reduced to ashes overnight. What happens when faith replaces fear? Instead of giving in to despair, King Hezekiah made a bold choice. He turned to God, the ultimate source of power and hope. In the temple, he spread Sennacherib's mocking letter before the Lord and prayed with sincerity and faith. His prayer was simple but powerful, acknowledging God's sovereignty and pleading for deliverance so that all nations would know the Lord alone is God. Hezekiah's faith wasn't blind optimism. It was rooted in his deep understanding of God's past faithfulness. The king's decision to rely on prayer rather than military strategy or political alliances was a defining moment that shifted the course of this battle. Can you imagine hearing directly from God in your darkest hour? As Hezekiah prayed, the prophet Isaiah delivered God's response. "Do not be afraid of what you have heard. I will defend this city and save it for my sake and for the sake of my servant David." These words carried a promise that no earthly power could override. Isaiah's prophecy wasn't just reassurance, it was a bold declaration of God's intent to intervene. This promise must have seemed almost too good to be true as the Assyrian army's presence loomed outside the gates. Yet it was a reminder that God's power is not bound by human limitations or the size of an opposing force. What happens when divine power meets human arrogance? That very night, the angel of the Lord moved through the Assyrian camp. By morning, 185,000 soldiers lay lifeless. Imagine the shock of the survivors as they awoke to utter devastation. The once proud and invincible army was now a sea of silence, their strength erased in an instant. The Bible doesn't go into detail about how the angel carried out this act, leaving us to marvel at the sheer power of God. The message was clear: no human force, no matter how great, could stand against the will of the Almighty. Sennacherib, once so confident, fled back to Nineveh in humiliation, never to threaten Jerusalem again. This moment was a turning point in biblical history, a dramatic display of God's ability to save his people without a single sword being raised. Could this victory have happened without Hezekiah's prayer? At the heart of this story is the undeniable power of prayer and faith. Hezekiah didn't place his trust in human strength or strategies. He placed it in God. His prayer was an act of surrender, acknowledging that the battle belonged to the Lord. This is a lesson for us today. When faced with challenges that seem insurmountable, prayer becomes our greatest weapon. It's a reminder that our victories don't come from our abilities, but from our dependence on God. How can this story transform your life today? This isn't just a tale from history. It's a living reminder of the power of faith and prayer. When life's challenges feel insurmountable, remember that the same God who delivered Judah can deliver you. No enemy, no obstacle, no situation is greater than the God who fights for his people. The story of Hezekiah encourages us to trust God fully, even when the odds seem impossible. It's a call to stand firm, pray boldly, and watch God work in ways we can't even imagine.